So I'm scrolling through Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and I see something. They're doing what? Hi, hello. I'm Hans, I'm an intersex artist, activist, and Rosie Maplemoth. I'm here today to help explain why the book Middlesex is an irredeemable piece of shit. The book Middlesex is very heavily and very transparently lifted from the writings of a real intersex person, Herculean Barbin, who lived in France in the 1800s. And what's special about her writing is that it's one of the very few pieces of historical writing that we have that's in an intersex person's voice themselves. Usually the kind of writing from this period is from European doctors who are arguing with their colleagues about what the true gender identity of an intersex person is supposed to be. And this was high stakes because doctors in the state could force intersex people to transition against their will based on what was found on their bodies. And in the context of the time, homosexuality was also seen as a sign of gender, and any intersex person who was attracted to women was suspected of being really a man, regardless of how they had lived their life. Our hero, Herculean, lived as a woman and fell in love with a woman. When authorities discovered that she was in love with a woman as an intersex person, they forced her to undergo invasive medical testing, leave town, and basically reinvent her life to live as male against her will. It's not a happy story. It led to her death by suicide. So when I refer to Herculean, I use she, her pronouns because I don't think of her story as a transgender story in the context that we might understand it today. She didn't have innate knowledge that her gender identity was different. She was the victim of state violence for having an intersex body. And so enter Jeffrey Eugenides,
a highly serious literary novelist whose books are also enormously popular. His second novel, Middlesex, won the Pulitzer Prize and remains one of the best-selling of all contemporary American novels.
But here's the thing. In his research for Middlesex, he refused to talk to any actual intersex people, most likely because he was worried about it compromising his creative vision. This is how he explains his discovery of Herculean's story in an interview with Oprah. I expected the memoir to be fascinating, wildly dramatic, as well as revelatory about experiences I myself had no clue about. Unfortunately, Herculean Barbin wrote very much like the convent schoolgirl she was. Her prose is melodramatic, sentimental. She's evasive about her anatomical details. So, you're saying that a teenage girl who was forced by the state to live as a man, dying by suicide, is dramatic, and you would have preferred that she focused more on the genitals. I thought to myself, rather hubristically, that I'd like to write the story myself. And write it he did. The character Cal, who does end up using he/him pronouns, I'll refer to him that way, the character Cal runs away from home when his doctors and parents try to get him to undergo intersex clitoral reduction surgery. The doctors use the usual language to argue that Cal's intersex traits should have made his gender identity more masculine. But the way that Cal describes his relationship to masculinity is, I never felt out of place being a girl. He states that the facticity of his body and what doctors found is what caused him to run away and transition to living as male. Now, what Eugenides does so well here is replicating a deeply traumatic abuse of power in a way that is just impressively unaware. The real Herculean was scarred by this violence, and Cal decided that he was just going to live his life as a man to prove his doctors right. Just like the doctors, Cal conceptualizes his intersex differences and his sexuality and internalizes them as facts of his maleness. Cal writes, "Breasts have the same effect on me as anyone with my testosterone level." Okay, but counterpoint, maybe boobs are just nice. Who doesn't like boobs? What I think is actually really realistic here is the self-gaslighting that intersex people fall into, questioning who they are because of the way that facts about their body are presented. It's about the authority of old, powerful, credentialed men overruling their own instincts about themselves. And in fact, I did find the scenes in which doctors were telling Cal all the reasons why he wasn't feminine enough super realistic, down to the T of my own and my friends' experiences. And it's not surprising that Eugenides gets the experiences of the doctors abusing power right. We know that compared to the source material, Eugenides wanted more focus on genitals, and that comes across in a very Freakshow kind of way. He even has the character Cal say, "My genitals have been the most significant thing that ever happened to me," which is like the last thing that any actual intersex person is going to say. Look, I still get this email all the dang time. I will give Eugenides credit for his Pulitzer-winning vocabulary. You can't just say clitoris or vagina or junk. You've got to get creative. Like the clean saltwater muscle of the female genitalia. A snail that had lost its shell. The cyclopean eye. The blooming crocus. Her genitals. The oracular vulva. The dry tuber. The feminized stalks. I am so getting sued. He falls into every offensive and fetishizing stereotype about intersex bodies, probably within the first 50 pages or so. The character Cal joins a literal freak show. Doctors try to take non-consensual photography of his body. And probably the granddaddy of all offensive intersex tropes is the incest plotline.
Middlesex was where I taught myself how to plot. It's an extremely heavily over-plotted novel almost. And
this is actually the part of the book that I see praised the most, for its prose or for the richness of the family tree descriptions. But all I hear is, weird genitals are punishment, because incest. But Eugenides did get to take a sweet 10 years to write about what really mattered to him. The ill-tempered eel, the apparatus, clitorises that had elongated tremendously from abundant desire. Womanly erections, possessing a sensitivity and aliveness that no dildo ever had. Yeah, let's throw out a Pulitzer. It's obvious that Eugenides saw himself as a solitary writer and didn't want to be burdened with anyone's actual experiences. This is also evidenced by the pretty gross way that the character Cal conceptualizes Asian women. He sees a random Asian woman on the street, tries to guess her nationality, and imagines that she is a reincarnated Chinese princess that has arrived in his life to teach him something. He does ask her out on a date, and pretty much her only line of dialogue in most of the book is about turning the lights off for sex because she is shy and submissive. Her character only exists to be a sounding board for the main character's sexual confusion. And all of this is about what storytelling movements like #OwnVoices are about. It is exhausting to see writers like Eugenides getting praise and selling millions of copies of their books for imagining and fetishizing pain that they don't directly experience. See also American Dirt. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't write intersex characters at all. I do consulting work where people pay me to help them do this well. What I'm saying is, intersex people are real, and yeah, they should exist in fictional worlds too. But we should leave storytelling that's about pain to the people that experience that pain themselves. Because of Middlesex, it's Cal's story, not Herculean's, that's been exposed to millions of people, even Oprah, and I'm always going to be angry about that. I really, really hope that anyone threatening to adapt this book for television or film will listen. So anyway, go read a book by an actual intersex person. I'll leave some links in the description. There are luckily several that are out by now. XOXY, a memoir by Kimberly Zieselman, Born Both by Hida Viloria, and my personal favorite, Intersex for lack of a better word, that was written by my friend Thea Hillman here in San Francisco. There are also incredible intersex filmmakers who are telling actual stories about their actual lives. My pal River Gallo, who's the first intersex person to write and star in a narrative intersex story, Ponyboy. There's intersex activists like Pigeon and Sean Saifawal and Tatenda Ngwaru who are making really cool documentaries about their actual lives. And I'll put these links in the description too so that y'all can check those out. And of course, there are also intersex YouTubers who need you to subscribe to their channels. So please hit that subscribe button for me so you can see what's next. And I'd love to know, what did you think of the book Middlesex? What do you think now? And for everybody, what's your favorite piece of intersex OwnVoices media? I'm excited that we are starting to see a lot more. Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you next time.